Welcome back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning has been on the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. We told you in the last segment how you and your family can stream not one, but two productions of A Christmas Carol right there in the comfort of your home. Again, you can go to MilwaukeeRep.com to get all the details. I'm now being joined by our friend Tammy Belton-DAVIS. She serves as the Chief Diversity Officer at the Rep, and rejoining us is Chad Bauman, who's the Executive Director at the Rep. Thank you both for coming back to the show.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yes.
And I really want to talk about how last year the Milwaukee Reps Board of Trustees unanimously voted to adopt a 5-year strategic plan focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion. Could you talk a little bit about why you felt this was so important for the Milwaukee Rep, Tammy?
I should probably take a step back. I've been and consider myself a part of the Milwaukee Rep family for almost 7 years, and in a host of capacity as a volunteer and as well as a consultant. And so the role that Milwaukee Rep serves locally as a cultural institution, as well as a national leader in the industry, it makes complete sense that they would also be taking on this charge with great diligence around equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so just as you mentioned, it has become a strategic priority of the organization well before the Chief Diversity Officer role that I hold with the organization was created. Earlier this year, and I'm probably now in my 5th or 6th month in this role, really sort of accelerating that work. As many people are understanding, race has been centered in the national dialogue. And so organizations around the globe and people around the globe are now centering race as a priority, as a topic of discussion. And this commitment that Milwaukee Rep to really be a more inclusive organization was started before, I should say, really the world started talking about these issues that impact BIPOC individuals and communities, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And so it is, I think, my personal values and what I've been able to do in my leadership that is a culmination of being able to support the organization in this work. And so it has been, the great blessing of 2020 for me to have added this tremendous work with Milwaukee Rep to the work that we're doing.
Yes, indeed. And I too think that it's awesome that the organization as a whole has taken on that challenge of not only taking COVID-19 head on, but also taken on the other issue that has, like you said, been right there in the forefront of what's happening in our world today, systemic racism. So you've been working directly with the board, Tammy, and the executive leadership there. What are some of the main focal points that you would bring to those entities?
Absolutely. I think, it is about understanding the industry. As you shared, we're living through 2 pandemics, right? And so Milwaukee Rep has had to adjust its programming and how it executes its mission because of the health pandemic. But also the pandemic around structural racism has required us to develop a plan and strategy that is about accountability. And it is about accountability while we have centered race as an important issue. It is really addressing all of the issues around marginalized communities. And so when we think about the efforts of diversity, inclusion, and equity, it is not just about race and Black folks. It is about our LGBTQ plus members. It is about those that have disabilities. It is about other people of color that have to be voices that are at the table. And I know that the board has been committed to this because it is a priority of the board. And so we've been working in partnership with a firm in Chicago, Kaleidoscope Group, to help lift this work. So congruently and concurrently with our planning and discussions with BIPOC artists, our team, our leadership group, our board of directors, board of trustees, we've been able to have these conversations and really put some intentionality around our ED&I goals. And so I want to lift that that's a really important piece, that at every level of the organization, we have involvement and engagement, and it has become and has been a priority for us to really do the work to make us an even stronger organization.
Yeah, and a key thing that you said early on is that this is something that the Milwaukee Rep has always done. Chad, we were talking in the last segment about some of the productions that have come to the city over the years, and I attended many shows there at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater that stood out to me because you cover the gamut. You make sure there's something there for everyone. And what's most important is the fact that you allow audiences to come together. Many times it's after a show to have dialogue with each other, or to have dialogue with some of those actors that were part of that production. And that's important because, you know, sometimes we talk about Milwaukee being the most segregated city in America. And so if you live on one side of town and someone lives on a totally different side of town, and really you've never really experienced what those two different sides of town may be like, you have an opportunity in many instances to sit down and have that conversation depending on the content of that production. Would you agree?
That's very true. I mean, we're a public living room for the city. And so in our mission statement itself, it says we need to be representative of Milwaukee's rich diversity. And the second part is we need to drive positive change. And so as we program the shows that you see on our stages, they are meant to bring up critical conversations within our community. And over the last couple of years, we've grown a little bit concerned that the ability to have really detailed and nuanced discussions, particularly in such a heightened emotional time, have really atrophied. And so we've partnered with the Zeidler Group to bring together our audiences to really deal and wrestle with some of our community's greatest issues, and do so in a way that is civil and mindful of how we can create positive change. And so whether that's gun violence issues, whether that's racism, whether that's the leg crisis, whatever the case may be, this is a place for discussion and action at the Rep.
I love that. And Tammy, I think it's important because there are so many organizations and companies that are starting to understand the importance of, the concept of diversity and inclusion. Talk about why, for those companies that may not have gotten there yet, it is important to understand how this works and why it truly does make a difference.
Absolutely. There's no greater statement that I think I've been using, and that is the urgency of now. There is not a better time in what is currently happening around our national landscape, what's happening in Milwaukee, to start the path and journey to having these conversations. You don't build out a robust plan that we're currently engaged in. The Milwaukee Rep team is without having some of those initial conversations to say that this is important. It matters. Diversity matters. Equity matters. Inclusion matters. It matters to have voices at the table. It matters to have diversity of perspective and thought. It matters to have diversity in terms of how we engage these critical issues, just as what Chad has lifted in conversations with our community members. It is important that institutions demonstrate their commitment really by looking at, one, their culture and their workplace culture, but also being a demonstration and a model for the world that says that the issues that people have been lifting for centuries and decades around equity are not going away. And if we're truly going to see the systems change work happen, it is going to take all of us to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And when you think about the arts, a lot of times people who don't have extra income, we'll say, don't feel like the arts are set aside for them. Maybe they don't they don't fit in, or maybe they can't afford it. But I think the Milwaukee Rep has done an outstanding job in partnering with organizations and nonprofits to make sure everyone has an opportunity to enjoy the arts and understand that there is something there for them specifically. Chad?
Yeah, that's very true. We are in service to our community, and that means everybody in our community, not just those that can afford a ticket price. And so a lot of our work is in Metcalf and Amani, and we work with those community action teams. We're in the schools. We serve 20,000 students in 250 different schools, and we meet people where they're at. And so what we provide is inspiration to everyone in the city, and it's important that everybody has access to beautiful art.
Yes, indeed. And you guys are going to be welcoming, I don't know if he's here yet or not, but you've got a new associate artistic director who's lived in New York and Philly. Talk about bringing some spice to the organization and diversity for that matter, because he's an Indo-Afro-Caribbean American artist, educator, and activist. So talk a little bit about who this man is and what he's going to be bringing to the table.
Rajendra is great. He's a New York-based, or has been a New York-based activist and artist. He ran his own company. He's what I love about him, and you mentioned his name, and Tammy and I both smiled. His energy is just infectious.
Well, I couldn't say his name. That's why I let you do it.
Yeah, he's come in. He's our associate artistic producer. He's going to be spearheading community-based projects, spearheading a lot of work on our stages. But overall, he's just another thought partner and a thought leader in this field. And he's going to be one of our rising stars. I'm really thrilled about it.
Yes, he's been hailed by the New York Times as one of the most talented directors in New York these days, in quotes. So like I said, that's bringing a lot of energy and excitement to the Milwaukee Rep, because he comes from the East Coast, and you can take some of that flavor and run with it, right?
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you both for joining us today. I think this conversation is so very important. Like we said earlier, just with everything that's going on in the world today, and the arts truly has and continues to play a huge role in just changing the mindset of how people approach things, approach other people, and approach life in general. So thank you for the work that you do, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that 2021 is a lot brighter than this year.
Right.
So I appreciate you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Chad Bauman is the executive director of the Milwaukee Rep, and Tammy Belton-Davis serves as the chief diversity officer at the Repertory Theater. Again, for information on anything that we've discussed today, go to MilwaukeeRep.com. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, thank you for joining us, and I do hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues, Milwaukee. Have a great day and happy holidays.